Okay, now we're going to be working on creating a stretchy arm for this arm right here. And if we look at it right now, it kind of compresses here, which is fine when we bend, but when we come out this way, we want it to actually stretch the joints to match up where the position of that arm is. It will do a few things for us. It will limit the number of popping, and then it will also limit the and it will give us some cartoony animation for the stretch here. Okay, so let's get started. I want to open up the node editor, and what I'm going to do is, what do we need in here? We need to create a merge tool first before we go into not a merge tool, sorry, a measure tool. And the measure tool is going to measure the distance here. So whenever it gets to this distance, it'll stay fine, and then as soon as it gets past this distance, it will stretch. So let's do that here. We're going to go to create, measure tools, distance tool. So I'm going to hold down V so it snaps onto the joint here. Make sure you don't have your mesh visible, because V also allows you to snap onto the vertices of geometry. So we want to make sure that it is measuring the exact distance between these joints here. So you'll see that after I'm going to push enter on the numeric keypad to finalize it, and then you can see as we change the distance here, it's going to give us a different distance value. Select this here, that gives us the node there. So we need this selected here when we open up the outliner. Sorry, not the outliner, but the node editor. And we're going to tell it that we need its inputs. And let's move this off to the side here. The dimension shaped node, oops, let's move this out of the way, is what we're using here. So if we expand it all, we can see that we have the distance attribute. Okay, so what we're going to do is divide this by itself. When it is divided by itself, if it's smaller, it's going to have a lower number. If it's bigger, it's going to have a higher number. And then we can do a condition statement to connect everything together. So let's do that. Let's do a multiply divide node, and in order to get a node here, all you gotta do is push tab and then start typing multiply divide, select it, push enter, and then we can drag the distance, and we're going to need to see exactly what we're going to connect it to. So we're going to connect it to input 1x. There you go. And then over here, we can divide it by itself. So that will give us the exact same length that we have here, if that's what we're looking for. And in this case, we are. You can adjust it a little bit up and down depending on your rig, if it has more of a bent elbow or not. But I'm just going to keep this distance right here. Oops. Let's do copy and paste. There we go. So now, like I said, we have to set up a condition. We're taking, before we set up the condition, we need to make sure that it's divide. There we go. Okay, so let's set up a condition. We can push tab here, condition, select it. So that's what we're going to be doing. So here we have first term and second term, so that's what we're going to be using to figure out what we want. So we're going to take not the input, but the output. So we can expand that there. And then on this multiply divide node, we have x, y, and z. So I'm going to take that output x and put it into the first term here. So if we click on it here, we can see that it's yellow and then it's feeding it in. So if we look at these values here, the 44.31 divided by 44.34, sorry, 44.34, they're the same number dividing by each other. When we look at the condition, it's resulting into 1. So we need to compare this to a second number. This is the point where it is where we want to transition. So I'm going to put 1. So it's going to show us, it's going to start adjusting if it's equal to 1 right now. Right now we need to make sure that if it is greater than 1. So we can change this to greater than or equal to, or just greater than. I think I'm going to put greater than. Okay, so if it's greater than 1, we have two conditions here, if true and if false. So if false, we're going to keep it at 1, so that way the scale of these joints don't scale down anymore. And then if true, we want it to get the value here. So let's check that now. We want to say if true, we can expand that. Oops. If true, click the little plus. And then over here we had XYZ. Over here we have RGB. It's the same thing. We can connect them one to another. So here, I'm going to connect that there. So if true, it's going to take that value that we're doing the multiply divide node by. And then if false, we'll keep it at 1, so that way the scale is the same. So now we need to connect this to the joints. So we can do that in here, or we can do it in the connection editor. Either way, it's the same thing, really. Let's go ahead and do it in the node editor for the first one, and then we'll do it in the connection editor for the second one. So I'm going to take that and then add the inputs. Oopsies. So let's go ahead and click this measure tool and then do the in and out connections, so that way we get all of that we just had in there. And then let's select the joint here, and then what we need to do is add selected nodes to graph. So that's this node right here. We got the shoulder joint. Let's expand this, and we have the different things we can connect to. We need to make sure that we're connecting into the scale, and the scale X is what we're connecting to. So we're going to take the condition, and we have inputs and outputs. So we're going to take the conditions here, out color R, and we're going to connect it to the scale X. So that's how we do a connection here in the node editor. And then doing the exact same thing, but in a different way, we can go to the connection editor. So I'm going to make sure that the condition is selected here. Go to Window, General Editors, Connection Editor. And we have the out color here, the out color R. And then let's select a second joint here. So we're going to take the out color R and connect it to the scale X here. And that does the same thing that we just did down here. One way that we can test this is let's see, clear the graph, so that way we don't have anything here. Select that measure tool. Then we're going to see all the input and output connections. And when we go through the whole process here, we can see that it did connect into the shoulder here, and it does have a connection into the elbow. So it's fed the connection there. We just did it with a different tool. Okay, so let's check if this works. We still need to do one more thing, but let me take the locator. We have locator 1, and where is locator 2? It's inside of the distance tool. We don't really want it in there, so let's move it out. I might have done that on accident. Okay, so typically you'd see both of yours out here. If you put it inside of that one on accident like I did, you can adjust it there. So you can see now as I move the distance, it is going to scale up, so that works great. We need it to move with the IK handle, or move in the same time and place as the IK handle. So what we can do is make sure that we point constraint this to the control here. So let's take this. Well, let's select the control first, then the locator here, and do a constraint, point constraint. And now when we move this, we can see it comes down, and then when we stretch it, it stretches the joints. That is exactly what we want. And then this locator, we need to point constraint it to this joint here. So let's do that. Constraint, point constraint. So if we move this joint, it will stretch it if we needed to. Or if we move this control, it will stretch it if we needed to. So the thing that we want to make sure is that we don't connect it to the IK handle or the joint, because that's going to create a cycle error for us. But because we have it connected with a point constraint to the control, we don't have any issues. Okay, the last thing we want to do is take a opportunity to rename all of these things here. So this is going to be the left underscore wrist stretch underscore lock, LOC, for locator. I'm going to copy that, and then on here I'm going to paste that and then put an underscore, so that way we have the constraint, and it only says constraint, so let's put it point constraint. There we go. So now we can name these. This is going to be L underscore shoulder stretch underscore lock, and then I'm going to copy that, and over here underscore point constraint, and then we got that there fine. And then this is a distance tool. We'll say that this is the L underscore arm stretch underscore distance dimension. Okay, everything should be named properly now. And working properly. So we have an working IK arm right now. We can do more to it, and we will in future lessons. But if we wanted a basic working arm, we kind of have the working arm right now the way we have it. Alright, so we'll end this video here. We'll see you guys in the next video.